Welcome to Betrayal Affairs. In today's video, I'm going to take you deep into a story that began in the most ordinary way but slowly grew into something I never could have predicted. What I'm about to share isn't just a memory, it's an experience that shaped me, tested me, and made me question what love, loyalty, and trust really mean. It's a story of innocence, of choices, of emotions too big to be ignored, and of the way human hearts often wander down unexpected paths. I was 18 years old when this chapter of my life began. Back then, I was like many teenagers, unsure of who I was, shy around people, and often more comfortable in silence than in conversation. My parents, both doctors, lived very busy lives. Their schedules were unpredictable, their hours long, and while they did everything in their power to give me the best they could, their absence left the house feeling heavy and empty more often than not. That emptiness is probably what made me notice her so much. She came into my life quietly, as many significant people do. She was hired by my father to help manage our home while my parents were away working. She was only around 18, like me, but there was something different about her, something both childlike and radiant. Her name was Anika. Anika had a gentleness about her that was impossible to ignore. She was fair-skinned, soft-spoken, and healthy, waking every morning at dawn for yoga and exercise. She had a routine that gave her a glow of discipline and purity. Yet, despite her maturity and habit, her behavior carried the innocence of someone untouched by the world's harsher truths. Her laughter was unguarded, her questions direct, her emotions displayed without the masks adults wear so well. At first, we were simply two people crossing paths in the same house. I would return from school, quiet and withdrawn, and she would greet me with a simplicity that felt oddly comforting. "You must be tired, change first, then I'll bring you something to eat," she would say. And I, shy and awkward, would nod. Sometimes I'd speak, sometimes I wouldn't. But she never seemed to mind. It's strange how the smallest routines can build bonds. She learned the way I liked my food, the time I usually returned, the way I preferred silence at first but slowly warmed up after a few minutes. And I, in turn, began noticing her kindness, her quirks, even the way she argued with me. She argued like a child, never cruel, never calculating, simply emotional in the moment. If she raised her voice, she would always return later, apologetic, her guilt evident in the way she softened her words. Those apologies made me feel something I hadn't expected, important. Seen. As if my feelings mattered to her. And that's where it began, the slow, subtle shift from seeing her as the maid my father hired to seeing her as someone. At 18, I didn't fully understand my own heart. I only knew that I looked forward to seeing her, that her laughter echoed in my head when I was alone, and that her absence left the house colder than usual. My shyness didn't allow me to admit these feelings outright, but the heart has its ways. I began creating small excuses to be near her. A spilled glass here, a question there. I teased her sometimes, just to see her react. She was terrified of cockroaches, something I discovered early on. One day, when a dead cockroach appeared, I mischievously picked it up and pretended to chase her. She screamed, ran to the corner, and in that moment of laughter and panic, our boundaries shifted. I realized I had crossed an invisible line, not inappropriately, but emotionally. I was no longer indifferent to her presence. I wanted her attention. That realization scared me. She was, after all, someone hired by my family, someone innocent, someone who perhaps didn't even understand the complex emotions stirring in me. But feelings rarely ask for permission. As weeks turned into months, the rhythm of our connection grew stronger. We had small arguments, playful exchanges, and quiet conversations that stretched longer than either of us expected. My parents remained busy with their hospital shifts, leaving us alone more often than not. And in those empty hours, the silence of the house was filled by our voices. I turned 19, then 20, and she remained a steady part of my world. What had begun as dependency on her help slowly transformed into friendship. And yet, beneath that friendship, something else pulsed, something I wasn't ready to name. By the time I was 25, Anika had grown into herself. The childlike innocence was still there, but now it was paired with maturity, with a deeper awareness of the world. She respected my parents, worked hard, and carried herself with quiet dignity. And I had grown, too. No longer the shy boy she once comforted, I was a man, aware of my emotions, aware of my desires. And still, my heart wrestled with questions. Could I cross that line? Should I? Was it love, or was it simply the closeness born of years spent together under one roof? It was during a summer evening, while my parents were out of town, that the weight of these questions pressed harder than ever. I was in my room, pretending to focus on college assignments, but my mind was elsewhere. She was in the living room, folding laundry, humming to herself softly. I called her into my room under the pretext of needing help. I told her I had spilled something under the bed. She rushed in, ever helpful, kneeling to clean the spot I pointed to. Watching her in that simple act, my chest tightened with emotions I had buried for years. I didn't act recklessly. Instead, I did something scarier. I spoke. "Anika," I said softly, my voice uncertain. She looked up, her eyes questioning. Do you ever think about us? About me?" The room grew quiet. I could hear the faint hum of the ceiling fan, the distant barking of a stray dog outside. She stared at me, her expression unreadable at first. Then, slowly, she spoke. "I don't know what you mean," she whispered. But her flushed cheeks betrayed her. That was the moment I confessed. The words tumbled out in a rush I couldn't contain. I told her that she mattered to me, that she had for years, that I couldn't ignore it anymore. My voice trembled, but my heart felt lighter with each word. Her response wasn't immediate. She lowered her gaze, fingers twisting the cloth in her hands. Finally, in a voice barely audible, she said, "I've always cared for you too." Those words changed everything. From that day, our bond took on a new depth. We didn't suddenly become different people, instead, we became more honest versions of ourselves. We spent more time together, not just in the routines of daily life, but in conversations about our fears, our dreams, our regrets. I learned about her childhood, the struggles her family faced, the reasons she came to work at such a young age, the loneliness she carried even while smiling. She, in turn, learned about my insecurities, my shyness, the weight of growing up in a house filled with absence. Together, we filled the voids in each other. But love is never without its challenges. There were moments of guilt, on both sides. Moments when I wondered if what we were doing was fair, if my parents would ever accept it, if society would ever understand. Moments when she pulled back, afraid of the future, afraid of consequences. Yet, every time we drifted apart in fear, we found ourselves drawn back together by something stronger, the undeniable truth that we had become each other's home. Years passed, and our connection grew steadier. It wasn't the kind of love built on grand gestures or dramatic confessions, it was built on shared meals, whispered apologies, playful arguments, and the kind of trust that only grows when two people witness each other's most unguarded selves. Even now, looking back, I can say with certainty, what we shared wasn't perfect, but it was real. So why do I share this story with you today? Because stories like these remind us that love doesn't always arrive in the ways we expect. Sometimes it grows quietly, in the corners of our daily lives, in the spaces left empty by others, in the laughter of someone who sees us when no one else does. Anika wasn't just someone who worked in our house. She was the person who unknowingly became my confidant, my friend, my first love. And while the world may not have understood it, in our little universe, it made all the sense in the world. Our bond still continues, built on respect, care, and the lessons we both carried from those early days. If you've stayed with me through this long and winding confession, thank you. My story isn't about fairy tale perfection. It's about reality, the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of human emotions. And maybe, in some way, you've seen a reflection of your own journey in mine. Don't forget to like this video if it touched you, and subscribe to Betrayal Affairs for more stories that dive into the hidden truths of love, loyalty, and betrayal.